The structure of this particular workshop is, first there is a domain knowledge exchange. So today's domain is emotional intelligence. So I'm going to present you crux of emotional intelligence coaching, and ICF programs related to emotional intelligence coaching. So this is a presentation content. During the presentation content, so we are 3 panel members here. I am Hemant Lavangare. So I'm the founder director of MasterMylife Education and designer of world's first master degree in emotional intelligence. With me, my colleague Milind Khed is there, who is emotional intelligence expert. He has his own organization focusing on emotional intelligence training. He is also a faculty coach in our master degree in emotional intelligence along with Mumbai University. So where he teaches emotional intelligence subjects at the master degree level. And with me, Dr. Harshada Mule. She is the Dean Academics of Master My Life, and she has a PhD in emotional intelligence. So what we are going to cover today is a primarily mixed model of emotional intelligence, which is popularized by Daniel Goleman, strategies to improve emotional intelligence coaching process. So of course, I am going to talk about the generic coaching process, as well as I'm going to talk about emotional intelligence coaching process. Although the series is for the coaches, I understand that few of you are not coaches. And this is the reason some coaching element for 5 to 10 minutes have been integrated into the workshop. So even if you are not a practicing coach, you will get an idea of what coaching is, what emotionally intelligent coaching is, and how to conduct that particular emotional intelligence coaching session and what you have to do. And of course, at the end, we are going to look into how can you develop EI coaching mindset, emotionally intelligent coaching mindset. So the agenda means, if you ask me, is bit more compared to the time available. So what we are going to do, we are going to take every topic in brief, not necessarily going into the theories and the models in depth, but we will cover the crux of the topic. And then during the question and answer session, if you need any additional information on the topic, it will be provided to you. So first we will start with a 2-minute video. So this is just a brief on emotional intelligence and emotional intelligence coaching. And now we will go with the most popular model, which most of you are aware, which is a mixed model of emotional intelligence popularized by Daniel Goleman. So which talks about four quadrants. The two quadrants are related to self and two quadrants are related to the social, that is others. Within the self, there is a self-awareness and self-management, and within social there is a social awareness. The prime content of the social awareness is empathy, and there are social skills. So when we talk about the emotional intelligence and when we talk about emotional intelligence coaching, what we are going to do, we are going to take a reference of these four quadrants and we are going to explore ways to enhance your self awareness, self management, social awareness and social skills. For example, if you are a coach and you want to become EI coach, or you want to develop emotional intelligence into your coaching, right? First, you need to be emotionally intelligent. So this particular workshop aim is to give you some practical tips so that you can enhance your self emotional intelligence through the help of or through the background of these particular four quadrants. So these particular four quadrants consist of the competencies like emotional self-awareness. In self-management, it is about adaptability, especially the positive outlook. So the self-motivation is a part of self-management. And of course, emotional self-control is a part of self-management. Social awareness primarily consists of empathy, but at an organizational level, at a leadership level, it is also about organizational awareness. Relationship management for all of us is related to the influence, conflict management, teamwork, and our own coaching and mentoring skills. At an organizational leadership level, it is also about inspirational leadership, right? So these are the some say factors within each of these particular quadrants. So today's workshop, we are not going to dwell into what is emotional intelligence and definition of emotional intelligence, because the audience here, right, 90% plus of you already are aware about the foundations of emotional intelligence. So this workshop is a bit of advanced in nature. We are going to immediately dwell into what you can do to enhance your emotional intelligence, and how as a coach, means if you are a coach, how can you utilize emotional intelligence in your coaching? Or if you are not a coach, but if you are interested in emotional intelligence or coaching, what are the pathways available to you is the topic of this workshop. So when we are talking about emotional intelligence, right, what exactly is the attitude of emotionally intelligent person? So this video will brief us on attitude of emotionally intelligent person.
Today we look at the stories of two different men, two different worldviews, two different goals, and ultimately, two different paths. This is Alexander. He believes that there are two kinds of people in the world, the conquerors and the conquered. If you want to be great, you have to become a conqueror. It's a dog-eat-dog world, and only the fit survive. You have to determine who will conquer with you and whom you must conquer. Alexander read a lot as a kid. He fell in love with Greek heroes who displayed the highest virtues, courage and bravery. They were leaders, not followers. He didn't have much as a kid and had to work hard for everything that he had. This led him to believe that a person's life is the outcome of their actions, and that they must take complete responsibility for what happens to them. Physically and intellectually, he held himself to incredibly high standards. There's no one he wanted to conquer more than himself. One day, he encountered a homeless man. The man asked him for some change. Alexander knew what he was seeing. A conquered man. How could this man let himself be conquered so badly? How many mistakes must he have made to end up in this position? Why doesn't he take steps to dig himself out of this hole? Instead, he's taking the lazy way out. He's trying to take from those who worked hard for what they have. Those who make good decisions should not be punished by those who make bad decisions. Alexander knew that if the man wanted to eat, he needed to learn how to get fish and not have fish given to him. He became enraged by the man's weakness. This man won't get a penny from me, he thought to himself. That would only enable his destructive behaviors and poor attitude towards life. By suffering, he'll learn or he'll die. That's the way the world works. This is Joseph. He believes that there are two kinds of people in the world: those who can help and those who need to be helped. His father taught him that the highest good is to serve those who have nothing and to lift them up. Life is difficult, and those who have should serve those who have not. Joseph read a lot as a kid. He fell in love with very spiritual leaders who loved all and lived to serve. He grew up quite well off and always felt indebted to those who didn't. He felt lucky to have everything that he did. One day, he encountered a homeless man. The man asked him for some change. Joseph knew what he was seeing: a completely underserved man. This man had been abandoned by society. Joseph felt like weeping. Imagine how much we have failed as a society to let someone get to this point, he thought to himself. Life is so difficult and full of suffering and based on luck that any one of us could end up in his position. He grabbed some money from his pocket and handed it to the man. And with that, both stories end here. Both men had unique worldviews shaped by their past experiences. They both perceived the same man in a different light. Where one saw a weak man, the other saw a forsaken man. Their perceptions led them to feel different emotions. Their emotions were heavily affected by what they thought they were seeing. In actuality, both men knew nothing about the homeless man, and they have no idea what led him to this position. This is often the case in real life. From a young age, both men were surrounded by an invisible structure, referred to as culture or environment. The knowledge they grab from this structure allows them to navigate the world. Alex grew up in a structure of personal responsibility, of strength and weakness. He can only see people in this way. It's all he knows. Joseph grew up in a structure of collective responsibility, of the needy and the fortunate. He can only see people in this way. It's all he knows. For both men, emotions are tools. In Alex's world, anger is a useful tool that allows him to become strong, his highest ideal. In Joseph's world, compassion is a useful tool that allows you to become a giver, his highest ideal. One might wonder, if you could change the invisible structure that surrounds these men, if they reversed the books they read or the family that they had, would they perceive the world differently? If they perceived the world differently, would they feel differently? The master of emotions, then, is the one who can alter the invisible structure around them. This allows them to gather a diverse set of concepts, which allows them to see the same scenario in different ways. They would be neither Alexander nor Joseph. They would be both. They could become either one depending on the circumstances. Take a look at this image. What shapes do you see? You'd probably say a bunch of three-quarter circles and a square. Technically, there's actually no square there. It's simply a byproduct of how the three-quarter circles are arranged. But that doesn't change the fact that you'll always see it there because you're familiar with the concept of a square. If you never learned what a square was, you never see it there in the image. There's a layer of meaning hidden in the negative space. Emotional mastery is about perceiving multiple layers of meaning in the negative space of life. It's about seeing all of the potential realities that could exist. It's about looking at a homeless man and seeing that his position could be a byproduct of his personal decisions, or it could be the byproduct of a cultural failure. What I'm not saying is that these men can think different thoughts and change their emotions in the moment, but they can experience a different worldview now so they see differently in the future. They can find new ways of seeing or interacting with old things, and all they need to do is listen. Listen to the world in its many forms. Had they listened to one another's perspectives or asked the homeless man for his perspective, they might have seen the whole situation in a new light. As we conclude, let's return to this image. You probably think that there's nothing more to this image than the three-quarter circles and the square. But what if I told you that this is actually just one shape, a rectangle with 4 three-quarter circles removed from it? It's called a fit rectangle. Just by listening, you now have a new way of perceiving these patterns which was invisible to you before. A new layer of meaning. So, how does one master the emotions? By listening. But more importantly, listening to points of view that they haven't heard before or that are contrary to their own. To feel differently, they have to see differently. To see differently, they have to gain knowledge that they don't have. And to gain knowledge that they don't have, they have to experience new things.
So let us gain some knowledge and convert the knowledge into wisdom by applying that knowledge. So we are now going to take the same reference of the four quadrants of emotional intelligence: self-awareness, self-management, empathy. So the social awareness, I'm referring it as empathy, and social skills. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to brief you on some practical aspects or the tools and techniques to enhance your emotional intelligence in these four quadrants. And I'm going to spend little bit more time in one major aspect of each quadrant with the help of the video as well. So the Johari window is one of the very effective techniques. I have personally utilized it during my corporate journey. So the Johari window talks about 360-degree feedback, and that too in a very systematic manner, right? So there is a structure of the Johari window wherein you get the self-awareness, that is what people are perceiving about you, and you increase the size of your open area. I'm not going to talk much because there is a video on this, so wherein you will understand. Means, of course, many of you already know it. I'm not saying that you don't know it, but maybe that particular video will give some of you some more clarity. So this is one aspect of enhancing your self-awareness, and that you can do immediately after the workshop, right? So immediately after the workshop you can do it. So after the video, again, I can give you some more tips on how to immediately work on the Johari window. Number two is triggers. If you observe yourself, some particular events, some particular people, or some particular situation result into triggers in you. The triggers can be of joy, happiness. The triggers can be of anger or sadness, depending upon that particular event and situation. Why? Because these particular triggers have some root in your memory. Maybe some childhood event, maybe some event when you were young. And because of that intense event, you think that this particular thing is associated with that particular emotion. So you associate the things based on your memory. And these things create triggers. So when you want to enhance your self-awareness, basically you understand, you observe, that is okay, during the day, which were the events or the situations or the occasions when I felt good, when I felt not good, and what was the background of that particular event. So when that happened, was that event or what that similar situation had happened to you earlier? Then you understand. Of course, there are variety of the ways to know the triggers, but I am only telling you one of the simplest way, through your self observation. And once you understand the triggers, understanding your triggers is more than 50% solution. Once you know that this is my trigger of happiness and this is my trigger of sadness or anger, automatically when that particular thing happens, because of your heightened awareness about the trigger, that intensity of the anger will go down, but the intensity of the joy will remain same, because then you will intentionally, you will feel that particular joy. In case of the negative emotion, you will be aware that this trigger is related. Now there is a possibility that I may become sad or I may become angry. That awareness itself will reduce the intensity of that negative emotion. So this is the second point, trigger. The third and the most effective point for emotional as well as behavioral intelligence is journal writing. My master degree students in masters in emotional intelligence, life coaching, and human relations necessarily undergoes this particular exercise, not for a month or two, but for more than 1 year. So in a journal writing, you just write whatever is important things happen to you, which are noteworthy, especially related to your feelings, emotions, and learnings. And then once you go through that particular journal on a daily basis or even on a weekly basis, because today you can use a technology. So there is a mobile and there is a note facility on a notepad. If something happens, means you are feeling good, feeling bad, there is an important event. You feel that, okay, this event is asking you to learn something. You just note that into the mobile and create even your journal on the mobile, or afterwards you can even type it on your computer. So the general writing and afterwards going through those particular entries is one of the most effective tools of enhancing your self-awareness. So since now we are talking about the self-awareness, let me go to the Johari window and then we will again come back to the 4 quadrants. Sorry.
The Johari window. The importance of feedback can be illustrated through the concept of the Johari window. The Johari window is a model created in 1955 by 2 American psychologists, Joseph Left and Harrington Ingham, hence the name. It is used to help people improve self-awareness and mutual understanding between individuals within a group. The Johari window consists of 4 quadrants: the open self, blind self, hidden self, and unknown self, which correspond to the relationship between ourself and others. The open self is the part of ourselves which we are aware of and are known to others. We operate within this area naturally. This is the part of us which is an open book. The hidden self is the part of ourselves which we feel are too private to share with others, because they may also be embarrassing in some way. People may also be scared of discussing these areas due to feelings of vulnerability. The blind self is the part of ourselves which we do not know about, but others can see. It may be something that we imagine ourselves to be, but others do not observe in us at all. For example, a person who thinks that he is intelligent may in reality not actually be seen by others that way. Finally, the unknown self is the part of ourselves which nobody, not even ourselves, know about. This area is often known as our human potential. This may include abilities that are underestimated or untested due to a lack of opportunity, encouragement, confidence, or training. Uncovering this area may lead to the discovery of hidden talent. Note that in real life, these 4 quadrants are never equal in size and often change over time. When it comes to leadership development, we often want to increase people's open area. This is because people who have a large open area are able to inspire trust, are approachable and easy to talk to, and are seen as people who communicate openly and get along well with others. Established leaders will have larger open areas than new leaders, and they should help to facilitate increasing the size of new leaders' open areas. This is done through 2 things: self-disclosure and feedback. Self-disclosure expands the open area downward, decreasing the size of the hidden area. Established leaders can help new leaders expand their open area into the hidden area by asking personal questions. Feedback, on the other hand, expands the open area to the right, decreasing the size of the blind area. This is where 360 feedback comes in. In this instance, team members should strive to help leaders to expand their open area by offering constructive feedback. Now you can see why feedback is so important in leadership development.
So let me check chat box if there is you shall with the recording. Okay. So there are some technical questions. Okay, good. No problem. So it's a very simple process. The first is self-disclosure. Means, for example, you want a 360-degree feedback from the people, but the people may not know much about you. The people may not know about your goals, about your aspirations, about your dreams, about your values, about your future plans, right? The people might know you as an individual. So unless you give them information about yourself, about your plans, of course, means I'm not asking you to give some secret information, but the information which you can give, and then you have to ask them the feedback. Now, can the feedback sought to the 360-degree people will be the same? Of course, no. You have to segment people. For example, with the family members, your question will be different. With your professional colleagues, your questions will be different. With your mentors and teachers, your question will be different. With your neighbors and people who are seeing you from the outside but not closely associated with you, your questions will be different. So depending upon the segment, you will form some simple questions. First, you will have a formal or the informal dialogue with them, and then you will ask some particular questions about your personality, about your behavior, about how they perceive you, about your strengths and weaknesses. Once you do it, believe me, these people will have much more trust towards you, because they feel connected with you, because you are involving them into the 360-degree feedback and you are valuing them. You are thinking that, okay, they are so important to you. Because of that, you are asking feedback. So just because you are following the Zohari window, you can enhance your relationships with the people. Second quadrant is on a self-management. Self-management is about a variety of the things. It is time management, it is decision making, it is stress management, it is flexibility, it is attitude, it is adaptability, it is your achievement orientation, right? So there are variety of the things. It is taking initiative. So there are variety of the things which are associated with the self-management. But one of the most important thing of the self-management is value-based decision making. So the decision making, if you are in a position to take right decisions in your life, your self-management more than 50% is sorted out. So today we are going to see, give more focus on value-based decision making, right? And how you can arrive at those particular values. Of course, means I cannot give you much more information, but at least I can give you some tips which you can utilize from tomorrow onwards. So this is one aspect. So your decision, see how it happens. Many times we take situation-based decisions. We take decisions influenced by someone else. But that someone else may be experienced person, but that someone else may not be aware about you, your life, your plans, your strength, and your weaknesses. That someone else advice is from the perspective of that someone else. That may or may not apply rightly to your life. So this is the reason, if you are clear about your own values, and if you take each decision supporting your values and your life purpose, then even if some decisions may seem to be wrong right now, long term, they are not going to be detrimental to you, because inch by inch, you are heading towards your life purpose, towards your values, and towards your long-term goals. One of the most important aspects, especially related to the emotional intelligence, is pause and reflect. So there is a difference between, there is a just few second difference between reaction and response. And it is related to the neuroscience. Whenever any event happens, the instantaneous information goes to your amygdala or your limbic system. If the event is a great, it directly reaches amygdala. If event is emotional and important event, it first goes to the limbic system. It doesn't goes to your prefrontal cortex, which is your cognitive mind, right? So which is your thinking brain. First information always goes to your emotional brain, which is called as your limbic brain. Now, once that limbic brain gets information, after few milliseconds, right? After few point 0.0001 second, the information reaches to your prefrontal cortex, and that then processes the information logically, rationally, right? But if you instantaneously react, then you react with your limbic system, and then your responses or reactions will be emotional. Then your reactions will not generate the necessary response. So the only simple technique, just pause. Means, for example, something has happened to you, some event has happened to you, someone has just said something. Just take a pause of few seconds only. But that pause has to be conscious. So you are saying, okay, now I need to respond. Before responding, I am just taking a pause. Within that pause, automatically your prefrontal cortex get activated, and you can manage, you can convert your reaction to the responses. Just a few second pause is a trick as far as the emotional responses or reactions are concerned. There is one more very important point, which is called as multiple probabilities and stories. I have my video on the YouTube channel about this particular aspect. So I'm just going to brief you in very short. For example, take a case that the father has allowed his teenage daughter to go out with the friends with some restriction that you have to come back before 11 p.m. 14, 15-year-old daughter. Daughter goes, they of course go to the movie and afterwards dinner and all that. At 10:30, the daughter want to come back because the distance is from that restaurant to the home is say 15 to 20 minutes. But something happens, right? Something happens, and because of that, she gets delayed. Not her fault, right? And means on the way, there, for example, there was a party going on. Her other friends take her to the party, and in the party, the beer gets spilled over her dress. She has not drunk, right? But the situation happens such that she gets delayed. Why? Because there is a peer pressure and all that. Now, father sees her and father smells beer. Now the father gets annoyed, shouts and all that, and then their relationships take a dip. Why? Because the daughter has not drank it. Daughter thinks that she's so righteous. She has followed all the rules, right? But there were circumstances out of her control. But the father is not at all in a position to listen. Now she has a bad opinion, of course, temporarily about her father. And father has a temporarily bad opinion about his daughter. And now his future decisions are going to be impacted. Okay, so how to do everyone mute, because I'm not finding that particular thing here somehow.
I've done that.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you. So now your future decision making, the father's future decision making will be now related to this particular event because father is not listening. Now, when you have this particular mental attitude and a practice of multiple probabilities, now, for example, you are a father, what you will think, okay, whether my daughter has got into some mishap, is there some problem, right? Whether my daughter has delayed because there was a event or incident wherein she had to help someone. For example, there was a accident on the road and my daughter has spent time in helping that particular person. So now what father is doing? Father is making imaginary 3-4 stories. None of them can be the facts. But because of these multiple stories in the mind, the father's temper is under check. Why? Because father's brain, father's subconscious mind is telling him, you cannot have any particular emotion, right? Because you have story number 1, story number 2, story number 3, and story number 4. Now, when the daughter will come, father will not have any other option but to ask the daughter, that is okay, what exactly has happened. And when the daughter will tell, then this particular intense emotion, right, will not happen what had happened in this particular case. So always when something happens with you, you assume something. Of course, means it is a human brain to go for assumption. No problem. You assume. But only thing, you assume multiple probabilities. Assumption number 1, assumption number 2, assumption number 3, assumption number 4. Now, because you are having multiple stories in mind, you don't have any other option but to check with the other party on the real happenings or the real emotion what that person is talking about. A very simple technique, no great technique, no exercise, no time management. Only thing you have to just have the multiple probabilities in your mind. You will see that your self-management will go to the another level. So with this, we will go for a value-based decision making, which in my opinion accounts to more than 50% of self-management.
You are walking through the forest alone. Strolling between the trees, you suddenly stop. There's a faint sound. It's a noise, maybe somewhere in the bushes you can barely make it out. You walk towards that sound and it's getting louder. You see something that's been covered by branches and leaves. A large metal pod? It is about the size of a human body, maybe larger. There's a description inscribed on the vessel, but it's covered in dirt, so you wipe it away and you see that the wording is in English. People often see how the past might have been better, how you might have acted differently, said something different, and subsequent events might have unfolded in a different way. Have you ever had one of those thoughts about what might have been that was especially vivid, compelling, or obvious to you? Something you couldn't help but think about repeatedly? These questions stir in your mind, but it is the final sentence of the engraving that makes you feel your heartbeat. This machine can take you back to that moment. As if the machine can read your mind, as soon as you finish that sentence, the pod opens up. There's a big green button, it's flashing, it says go. You lay down, you strap in, you put your hand on that button, you think back to that moment you wish you could have acted differently in. You take a deep breath and you push. Where does that machine take you? What would you have done differently? How would it have changed your life? The inscription on that metal pod is actually a real-life verbatim question that researchers from the University of Illinois asked 121 participants in 2005. It might seem logical that perhaps the decisions that we can't take back, those moments that have passed us by entirely where no recourse is available, would produce the greatest amount of regret. But these survey studies actually show a different result. Researchers reason that people don't regret things that they can't change as much as things that they still can change. I mean, if you can't go back and make it any different, shouldn't you just move on? These studies showed that the top 5 regrets that people held on to were based on decisions in self-improvement, becoming a better parent, romantic interests, career decisions, and the biggest regret, which has stayed consistent in these studies since 1949, is education. So if people have the most regret for things that they can go back to right now and change, then perhaps some of what defines regret to the human experience is the opportunity for decision itself. Whether it is a decision that we have to make in the spur of a moment or a huge decision that alters the course of a life, is there anything we can do to limit our regret? Ironically, a solution may lie in a phrase often associated with thieves. Pirates are often linked to the phrase code of honor, a simple list of guiding principles for their decisions. The code of honor isn't an infinite scroll. It's easy to remember. It's concise and thus practical in the rush of a moment's decision, which basically is what life is. It's for all those moments where a path is not obvious. The right decision requires contemplation. Should I fight for this? Should I be honest? Does this deserve my commitment? A written and memorized code of honor may sound unconventional or perhaps even medieval in some ways, but imagine this. Imagine a world where there was no systematic standard for our moral decisions, no written laws. In the courtroom, the judge has nothing to reference. They make their decisions by the feeling of the day. 5-day sentence for you, 5 years for you, same crime. If this sounds ridiculous, it's because it is ridiculous. But is that really much of an exaggeration to say that most of us are doing that every day? Making decisions at the whim of a moment rather than with any real consistency? Yes, many identify with belief systems founded on political parties, religion, and personal experience. But after all that, we're still left with volumes of information. Left with the task of prioritizing what in that mix makes the foundation of our character. Come up with a list of words, of values that define your code of honor. Try to stick with dictionary definitions. Avoid ambiguity. After all, that's what this is all about. No more than 10 values. Actually, 5 is better.
So this video talks about taking value-based decisions. If you take the value-based decisions, you might not have regrets in your life. Why? Because you are convinced that that particular decision, which has gone wrong, or in sometimes temporarily it has gone wrong, but it is related to your value. So you have your code of honor, you have your own values. And because of that, sometimes you will feel happy, sometimes it will work, sometimes it may not work, but you have a clear cut, you have a thought clarity that I took that decision for this particular value, and for long term, right, in my life, this particular decision making process will help me. Many people, right? So one of the one of the root cause of the sadness is guilt. One of the root cause of the sadness is, okay, I should have done that, right? That all issues, right? That all emotional torture you can manage if you start taking valuable decisions for which you should be clear about your values. And of course, there is a process of identifying your values. In our ACTP program of coach training, we undergo this particular detailed process of identifying your top 5 values. Of course, you can go on internet. There are variety of the tests to identify your values. They help you. This online test will help you. And of course, if you want more information, you can write to us. We can give you the links of this test, strength finder test, as well as the identification of your values test. And then start making decisions of your life aligned with the values. Now we go to the empathy. Of course, I'm not going for a definition of empathy and all that. I know this is a august crowd, experienced crowd. Most of you are coaches. You understand all that. I'm going to only talk some practical points. Do you know what is the most important point for your relationship and the, say, social influence? Just paying attention. For example, if someone is talking to you, just pay attention. Nothing great.
So give them
Yeah.
some time.
Yeah.
Uh,
So please mute. Yeah. So just give them your attention. Even if you are not going out with that particular person and going for the parties or some events and all that, just because you are giving attention to that particular person, right? That particular person will have a sea change positive opinion about you. So the attention is the point which is going to enhance your empathy, right? In this way. The another way, when you pay attention, you automatically understand the feelings and emotions. With the attention, you understand words between the words. You fill in the blanks. The person is talking, but sometimes the person is not talking the exact emotion and the feeling, but you understand that, yes, because of the attention. Right. So the attention is good for social skill. Attention is good to understand the emotions and the feelings and then give the empathetic response. Another important mindset for empathy is, of course, perspective. For example, if someone is talking to you, to understand that they might have the different worldview, right? You have one worldview, you think that this is right, your value is this, that person's value is different, that person's worldview is different. That does not make that person wrong. That makes that person different, right? You have a different thought process. That person has a different thought process. So when you think from a third perspective, when you think that, okay, his worldview is different. He's seeing the world in a different way. I'm seeing the world in a different way. That allows you to be empathetic. But if you think that your worldview only is right, it will be very difficult for you to be empathetic. And the mindful listening also comes from attention. When you start giving attention, there is a possibility that you can mindfully listen. And of course, mindful listening is a very popular thing, and all that means on net, you will find so many things, right? So much information related to the mindful listening. So I'm not going to dwell deep into the topic, but let us understand something about empathy, because there is some misconception about empathy. So this particular video, if at all there is a misconception, we'll cover that misconception.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy
fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. Yeah. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
So the empathy is all about connection, right? So social skills. So one important element, what especially Master My Life promotes, is behavioral intelligence, is the application of the DISC. So when you are behaviorally intelligent, your 80% of the social skills are taken care. One technique called as application of the DISC, application of the DISC, covers your 80% of the issues related to the social skills. In the balance 20%, there is a conflict management, right? So wherein you don't have to always win. So this attitude of always winning any argument or any situation is a detrimental to the social skills. To lose for someone is also a win. And becoming vulnerable. Many times we think that in society, people like heroes. People like heroes is a half truth. People also like people who make mistakes. People like vulnerable people so that they can show upper hand and they can reach to you and say something to you. If you are always right, yeah, if you are always a hero, that means you lack in social skills. Heroes remain alone, right? But if you are vulnerable, if you are making mistakes, and if you are saying to the people, yes, I made mistake, believe me, people will accept you with both hands and your social skills will improve. So with this, I show you a very small video on behavioral intelligence. What is this particular thing called as DISC and behavioral intelligence? I know, right? So there are many of you who have already attended my webinar on behavioral intelligence, and you already know it. So it is just a 2-minute video.
Your success in life, both professional and personal, is largely determined by how well you interact with others. You've probably noticed it is very easy to get along with certain people, You almost instantly and effortlessly understand the other person. The communication just flows. Unfortunately, with most people, communication takes more effort. You cannot quite understand where the other person is coming from, what they really want, and what their intentions are. You may also have an uncomfortable feeling the other person is having a similar experience. During the course of a conversation, have you lost a sale, frustrated a customer, demotivated an employee, or angered a friend? On top of that, did the interaction make you disappointed, frustrated, and even tired? It takes energy, effort, and concentration, and still, the results are not what you hoped they would be. Extended DISC provides you with the model to have more successful interactions with others. You will learn the 4 DISC styles, how to identify who you are and how others perceive you, leading to a more confident self-awareness, how to better read other people and understand them, and how to modify your behavior to become even more successful. Extended DISC is based on the most widely used and accepted model of human behavior. The power of this model is that it is easy to learn, understand, and use because it identifies only 4 behavioral styles of individuals. People can be divided into 4 main styles by identifying if they are more people or task-oriented, reserved, or active. The resulting 4 behavioral styles are called D style, I style, S style, and C style.
Right. So it's a very simple tool, and 80% of your problems on the social skills can be enhanced. So any one of you interested in knowing more, and if you have not attended my webinars on behavioral intelligence, in your survey form, the last question is a open question, or the open where you can put any remark. You can mention that you are interested in attending the behavioral intelligence webinar, and we will call you for our next behavioral intelligence webinar. So with this, we complete the practical tips or the tools and techniques to enhance your emotional intelligence. And now we go for what is coaching. Now, most of you are already coaches, so I'm not going to go into the details of what is coaching, because we have to now go, right? So 50% of the time is over. So now I have to go to the emotional intelligence coaching. So these are the differences between mentoring, consulting, counseling, or therapist, and coaching. So the purpose of the coaching is to maximize clients' potential. It is not related to the problem solving or guidance or advising or teaching. Coaching is all about maximizing clients' potential. The focus of coaching is on present situation, not on the past. Neha, please mute yourself. The focus of coaching is on the present situation and future goals and actions, right? Not on the past. The method of the coaching is very simple. It is a 5-step process, what I am going to explain in 2 minutes, because the coaches already knows the process. In coaching, agenda is set by client, not by you, not by coach. And the model is partnership model. You are equal, you are partners. The coach and clients are partners. And this is the reason why coaching is one of the most effective andragogies in the world. So this is the process of the coaching, right? If few of you are not coaches, so just refer this particular triangle. So the first phase is called as connection. You have to connect with your client, with the coaching. Then you have to finalize the agreement of the outcome. That is, what is the outcome from this particular interaction and the conversation, what we're expecting. So before conversation, you first finalize the outcome, and then you go ahead with a dialogue and a conversation, right? And then you, at the end, you see whether you have made the outcome. And during the session also, you always go back to the outcome so that you remain on track. And then the most important aspect of the coaching is evoking awareness, discovery. A coach allows client to explore unseen things, to enhance awareness of the client, to enhance self-awareness, which is the foundation of emotional intelligence. So this is what a coach does. And that is the reason why emotional intelligence is very, very important in coaching domain, and then action, and then monitoring the progress. So this is just a simple 5-stage process of coaching. And now I go to, okay, so before I go to the emotional intelligence coaching, why we are talking about the coaching? Because coaching is a huge industry worldwide, right? Actually, it is $15 billion industry, but this particular slide talks about only business coaching, right? So there are some other types of coaching as well. So where the coaches earn more than 50 lakh to more than 1 crore per annum. This is the average worldwide income of the business coaches. So the number one, huge industry. Number two, high income industry. And number three, highly growing industry. And this is the reason why we are talking about coaching. When we talk about emotional intelligence coaching, the three domains where the emotional intelligence coaching focuses on is to enhance your personal power, that is coach's personal power, of the self-perception as well as self-expression. To enhance coaches' social skills, which are interpersonal skills, empathy, social skills. And to make coaching adaptable to the change, stress management as well as the decision making. So these are the important areas on which a coach works if the coaching is for enhancing emotional intelligence. So this is the domain. These are the, say, areas of emotional intelligence coaching. What is the emotional intelligence coach does, right? So there is a model called as EI coach, right? It's an abbreviation. E is for emotion, I is for intelligence, C is for current, O is for opportunities, A is for action, right? And C is for change, and finally the H is for how you feel, right? So you start with the emotion, you end with the emotion. Why? Because it is the emotion which drives your decisions, right? Again, it's a neuroscience which says that 90% plus of your decisions are governed by subconscious mind, and less than 10% of your decisions are governed by your conscious mind dominated by prefrontal cortex. So this is the reason why emotions play a major role, right, in our life, and especially in coaching. So wherein you start with emotions, you end with the emotions. But if you have to adopt this EI coach model, first you have to be emotionally intelligent. As a coach, are you emotionally intelligent? So it starts with you developing your emotional intelligence competencies. And then in a coaching, how you are going to think differently, a emotional intelligence coach, a EI coach, and a normal coach. What is the difference? The number one, EI coach establish emotional bond, not only the bond of agreement, not only the bond of say comfortable, say the comfort level, emotional bond, and know the client below the waterline. Means you have seen that particular iceberg model, right? So the top of the iceberg is behavior, what you see, and the bottom of the iceberg is all about your beliefs, values, emotions, right? So that is what the job of, or a role of, or a duty of EI coaches, and EI coach is in a position to do it much better. And EI coach links the goals, outcomes of the session with the emotions, because emotions drive action. So when you link your emotions and the feelings with the goals, automatically the person is inspired to act. So this is what the EI coach does. EI coach, of course, adapts to the behavioral profile of a client. That is DISC. There are 4 types of people. So emotionally intelligent coach understands what is the behavioral profile of my client, and how my questioning and my approach changes based on the behavioral profile. So when you wear a hat of a coach, right, you have to think in terms of a client, and depending upon the behavioral profile of a client, you will adapt your questioning and your behavior for the benefit to the client, right? So these are the, and of course, emotional intelligence questioning, which there is a separate slide wherein I will tell you that is what kind of questions EI coach asks. So there is a separate slide on that. So again, I have come to this particular triangle. Now, for example, the first phase of coaching, establishing connection. The emotional intelligent coach is in a much better position to establish the connection because of the empathetic listening. So there are three levels of listening. So empathetic listening. In outcome, emotional intelligence coach matches, right, the emotions and the feelings of the client to the goals. So automatically that particular intensity of the outcomes enhances. In the discovery phase, right, again the mindful listening helps the coach, wherein the coach understands and uses empathy and uses the right EI questions, right, to have that particular better discovery and evoking awareness in the client. And then action has to be related to your value-based decision making, right? So EI coach understands the value system of a client and sees that whether the actions are aligned with my client values. So automatically these actions will never go wrong. And in a progress monitoring, EI coach again understands the client's behavioral profile. That is how to monitor D person, I person, S person, and C person differently, right? So this is how emotional intelligence coach, right, adapts EI tools and techniques within the coaching process. And these are the EI questions. For each domain, there are some, these are just the guidelines, right? So depending upon your client and the session and the goal, you can ask many kinds of questions. But there are questions like, what are you feeling and why you are feeling that way? Why? Because the why is your belief system. Why is maybe your memory. So you need to understand the client below the waterline. So these are the some questions to evoke self-awareness of the client. To enhance self-management of the client, right? What do you need to do in order to feel that way? Means, for example, there is a not so good feeling right now your client has. Then you ask, okay, how do you want to feel? Ideally, in such a situation, how do you like to feel? Then the client will say, no, actually, means I would like to feel more confident, for example. Okay, then what do you need to do in order to feel confident? So now you are using the coaching methodology of a powerful questioning, but you are attaching emotions and the feelings based questions to it, which allows client to go to the bottom of the iceberg. Social awareness, right? You need to understand, you need to ask questions related to the support and sabotage system in client's life. Who are the people who are going to support your client? Who are the people who are not going to support your client? Who is involved into this goal? Because generally in society, means you are not working alone. If you have any goal, there are many people who have a direct or indirect influence of your goal. So whether the client is aware about that, right? And what are their feelings, right? Because if their feelings are positive about your goal, definitely they are going to help you. In relationship management, is your client understanding how other people are feeling about him and what client has to do to influence those feelings positively? So this is how EI coach asks EI questions to enhance emotional intelligence of a client. So with this, we have completed the phase one, or the say 80% of the domain expertise, right? And now we are talking about developing an EI coaching mindset. Mindset doesn't get developed only by 1 or 2 hours workshop. 1 or 2 hours workshop can give you some domain knowledge, can give you some information, can give you some tools, techniques, tips. But if you have to develop your mindset, you have to deep dive into that particular topic, right? If you are interested in deep diving that, then there are ICF programs related to emotional intelligence coach. So the today's workshop is on coaching, emotional intelligence coaching. What is emotional intelligence? What is coaching? What is emotional intelligence coaching? But if you want to become a EI coach, and if you have to develop the EI coaching mindset, if you have to develop your EI competencies, right? If you have to learn and practice EI coaching process, if you have to learn to develop emotional intelligence of your coaching, which will give you a great USP vis-a-vis other coaches. If you want to network with the domain experts in this particular field, then there is a program available to you from the ICF certification of emotional intelligence coach, which covers, right? There is a 24 hours of training available. Curriculum covers starting from the emotions, from where emotions come, the foundation of the cognitive neuroscience, what are the different emotional intelligence model, what are the latest developments in emotional intelligence. So it is not only about the four quadrants, but there is a quantum brain and all that. Then how you can be have your emotional well-being, what are the tools and techniques for your own emotional well-being, and then focus on developing your self-awareness, your, that is coaches, not coaches, your self-management skills, your empathy skills, and your social skills. And then, of course, how you can implement all these particular wisdom into your coaching practice is the curriculum of this particular program, right? So the batch of this particular program is starting on 17th of July. So there are two kinds of programs, right? So one is called as CCE program. So right now, this particular workshop is under a banner of ICF CCE. What is CCE? CCE is Coach Continuing Education. Non-coaches also can attend it, but generally, coaches attend the Coach Continuing Education because it gives them some great knowledge to enhance their coaching practice, right? So there are CC programs of the 24 hours duration in EI coach, neuro-linguistic programming coach, positive psychology coach, and spiritual intelligence coach. These are the four programs, right? 24 hours duration. And there is a flagship program called as ICF ACTP, which is a global coach certification program of 146 hours. So anyone who is not coach and who is interested in becoming coach, you have two pathways. Either you can become a coach through a CC program, or you can become a professional coach, global coach through a ACTP program. If you are already a coach and if you are looking for specialization, if you are looking to enhance your practice, then you can take any of these specializations, get the domain knowledge, and integrate that specialization in your coaching practice to enhance your coaching practice. So this is the purpose of this particular CC programs.